So what have they achieved from all of this? So Temple came in 93, put a halt to the projects in 94, got a first product out the door in 1995, and then followed with the other products from then. So a schedule slip of about a year for at least the first customer. And this is the kind of variation that they are able to handle, or at least that they were. It has since increased. But at the time the product line was launched, they were able to handle 9 different engine types, engines with 4 to 18 cylinders, and I'm guessing that this 164-litre displacement is either one of these monster marine diesels or a big generator. 12 different kinds of ECMs and different kinds of fuel systems, and including at the time diesel fuel and natural gas. So the kinds of results that they were able to achieve from this is things like 20 different product groups being able to handle over 1,000 different engine applications. In fact, the highway truck market is a high volume, low variation market, but the other markets, power generation and industrial, are the ones with the really high variation. In fact, there's a chart in the book that shows a list of the kinds of engine types used in industrial applications, and there's 3 or 4 different engine categories in each with all of the associated variations there. So they have a terrific range of variability across this product line. 75% reuse of software across the products in the product line. They were able to achieve the goal of really slashing the product cycle time. And they've also seen a huge increase in the quality of the software associated with these engines that they attribute to this architecture-centric discipline of the product line approach. They've also seen a big gain in productivity in terms of being able to take advantage of the hardware in the ECMs. It's typically the case that the development of processors and hardware outpaces the ability of software engineers to take advantage of them and exploit them by way of creating new features. And once they had the product line in place, they were able to be more proactive about taking advantage of hardware features, because you don't have this duplication of effort across all of these projects anymore, and you do have time to do things right and to be proactive about anticipating future customer features and building those into the core assets. The other thing that we saw in the earlier module that dealt with the benefits of a software product line was that to move people around from one development project to the other in a product line organization is a much easier proposition, because everybody is now trained in the product line way of doing things. And Cummins saw exactly that result, that people are much more portable now. You can move people from an engine management system project for a highway truck to an industrial application like a standby diesel generator, and they are no longer walking into a whole new world with different tools and workflows and processes and so on. Everybody understands their role and responsibility within the product line concept of operations. This is an example from the point at which the product line took off here. So you have up to 1993, they're doing things the old way. Temple comes in, puts a halt to the old way of doing things in 1994. Then by 1995, they launch the architecture-centric approach, and you can see that the number of features that they were able to implement based on the capabilities of the electronic control modules really started to take off. And in fact, Cummins estimates that if they tried to do this without the product line approach, they would have required over 3.5 times the staff. So it's a big productivity enhancer just to standardize on an architecture and a set of components. And I always emphasize this to people, that even if you don't go all the way to creating a full-blown software product line, just becoming an architecture-centric organization and using that as your prescriptive guidance for future product building can bring a tremendous amount of advantage there. And if you then take the next step and use that as the basis for an entire product line, you can really achieve some of the significant results that I showed you in the earlier module. And in fact, Cummins told us that if they had tried to improve the organization by using process improvement alone, the benefit-cost ratio for that would have been about 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. But with the product line approach, they estimate that it was 10-to-1. Now, I would like to get behind some of these numbers and see how they were computed and see exactly what lies behind these figures. But we have no reason to believe that this isn't true. They really did find this whole product line approach to be of tremendous benefit and are still finding it to be of tremendous benefit. And in the scoping practice area, we saw how it pays not to be too rigid about the scope and the business that you think you're in. If Cummins had restricted this only to the automotive division, if you think that this is an integrated engine management system for highway trucks only, and the other divisions do their own thing with respect to the industrial and power generation applications, you could miss out on a major opportunity. And because they were proactive about bringing in people from the other business units, they were able to go after this industrial market. And you can look at that chart in the book and see there's about 50 different entries in the table that shows industrial applications of diesel engines. So the big lesson learned in all of this is the champion. You've got to have a champion, or if it's not a single person, some kind of product line steering group that can turn the organizational around, bring the new organizational culture in, change the structure as necessary, come up with a solution to how you're going to fund these reusable assets, and make sure that all of the roles and responsibilities within the concept of operations actually work in harmony towards the end goal of building products and making money for the organization. The end goal is not to launch a reuse effort. It's not to create a reuse library. It's not to create a core asset base. It's to make money, to adopt a new business approach in the organization. So you do need an effective, well-placed champion in the organization to do that. It certainly helps if you have a culture of cross-organizational cooperation. This is an important one. We did a product line probe several years ago for an organization that was putting together a product line team. This organization is a large organization, and of course, because it's a product line probe and the information is confidential, we can't really say who or what. But this is a large organization that acquired a lot of other organizations to attain additional expertise. So it grew into a pretty large conglomerate of organizations. And the product line group was to come from a couple of the subsidiary organizations, one in particular that was the market leader in their particular area of expertise, which is why they were acquired in the first place. The product line manager never could overcome the cultural differences in these parts of the organization. Particularly, the acquired organization that was the market leader, and rightly so, regarded themselves as being, we are a valuable resource to this organization. We are the experts in this area. But the acquiring organization treated them as just another acquisition. And there were some real cultural mismatches between the people on this team The product line manager also, I suspect, was not as committed to the product line idea as he should have been. And I think he saw this as a fast track to promotion. When he realized the difficulties that he was going to encounter with this cross-organizational structure, he decided to move elsewhere in the organization, and that product line went nowhere. So be prepared as the product line champion, product line manager, to have to deal with a lot of cultural and political issues that have nothing to do with the kinds of technology you plan on introducing. Mining small assets and throwing a lot of stuff into a reuse library is always a tempting way to start, but it's really not the way to go for product lines. You are trying to get large-grained reuse, and you're trying to create substantial assets like subsystems rather than just individual class libraries, for example. Configuration management is important, and you need to have a unified view of configuration management across the product line, not just in the individual groups doing core asset production or product production. You need to have a handle on the kinds of variation and the allowed configurations and the change management that's inevitably going to occur once you get a product out the door and you start getting requests from your customers for addition of new features. The other thing you should be careful about is the kinds of guidance that you give to product developers who are expected to take these core assets and incorporate them into products. You need something more than a shopping list of components and a list of variation mechanisms. So provide some prescriptive guidance for how at least a minimal subset of these components could be wired together to produce some sort of minimally functioning product. Not just a description, but here's how you assemble a rudimentary product from the core assets at hand. Think carefully about how you're going to measure whether or not this product line effort is succeeding. And look at the measures that were suggested in the measurement and tracking module and see which ones are appropriate for coming up with some way of quantifying whether or not the product line approach is actually bringing the benefits, particularly with respect to any of the goals that were set out for the product line. So look carefully at your goals. Is it time to market? Is it productivity? Is it quality enhancement? And determine what kinds of measures you can collect to quantify whether or not the organization is meeting those goals. And if your plan is to start a product line within a particular part of the organization and then take it out to other parts of the organization, make sure that when you look at requirements and features and you do the commonality and variability analysis, you bring in those other parts of the organization, as Cummins did. So where are they now? The original product line that they created is now called the Core 1 product line. They have moved into the second generation Core 2 product line. In fact, Core 2 was launched in 2004. They recognized that despite the benefits that they had achieved with the architecture-centric approach, it still wasn't as robust an approach as it could be in terms of architecture discipline and the analysis and documentation of an architecture in terms of multiple views. So they redefined their whole architecture development step. They introduced a more formal evaluation step that's based on more than just informal reviews. They now do look at quality attributes and do the kind of trade-off analysis that's necessary. They also beefed up their understanding of relevant domains because they're moving beyond well beyond the original product line, and they have a much stronger concept of operations for the organization. The organization has also changed quite a bit since the first product line was launched. At that time, they had about 100 software engineers involved in the product line. Now the organization has grown to about 500 software engineers, and the organization is distributed in many different locations, including a unit in India. The core asset base now includes assets to support the service organizations that have to service these diesel engines. So there's a set of resources there and about 300 additional features involving reusable fault trees and diagnostics. And in fact, the service organization is a first-class member of the product line in the sense that it's the service organization that defines the fault codes for the software rather than having developers do that. So there's a much more formal integration of the service organization into the overall product line organization. There's a much stronger production plan and production strategy. They are still using their in-house tool set. It has been extended quite a bit to include things like closed-loop simulator. So they have put a tremendous amount of effort into increasing the asset base, increasing the capabilities of the product line across the organization, and they have been able to achieve over 3 times what the original Core 1 product line achieved. And we are working with them to get as much information as we can to continue this story because it is very much alive. The other big result is that when Ron Temple retired, the whole product line mindset has continued within Cummins, and in fact it's now community practice to the extent that the role of champion is really no longer needed because that's the way they do business. So it is quite an achievement for an organization that didn't even think they were in the product line business to begin with. And the other kinds of benefits they have achieved are the kinds of ones that we discussed earlier. Things like you have more time to be proactive about investigating new technologies and new techniques. You also can achieve a greater quality in the products that you build by standardizing on a disciplined approach. They have been able to shrink their time to market, stay ahead of the market rivals. So this is you can think of this as a checklist for your organization. Do you have a compelling business reason for adopting software product lines in your organization? Do you have the necessary domain expertise? Do you have the understanding of relevant domains that would allow you to turn your expertise into efficient product development? Do you have a legacy base that you can draw on as a starting point, or would it be a totally new greenfield product line effort? Do you have a dedicated champion or a would-be champion? Who are the candidates in your organization who could take on this role? Or, like Cummins, would you have to go outside the organization to bring in that kind of expertise? Do you have the organizational cohesion to make cross-unit teams work effectively in a product line context? And how risk-averse are you to trying out a whole new way of operating as a business?